LSU. LSU with Carter, it's the power. LSU with Carter, man, I'm headed to the field. Terror of the tiger, I'ma always keep it real. Every team gon' get devoured, it's the power. LSU with Carter, it's the power. LSU with Carter.
Let's freaking go. The 5 biggest storylines for spring football. Let's start off with the clear, I say the clear and obvious one. We're going to save that one for the end. But the first thing that stands out to me as at the time of this live stream, we are 1 week away from spring football being underway, is the actual format of spring practice. So the thing that really interested me as far as what Lane Kiffin has done over the past couple of years with spring football is that he was the first to really make a big mockery out of the spring game. If you recall, he did an actual spring game Olympics where the players weren't even in pads. They were out there in shorts and t-shirts. And I do think Lane, who is a relatively progressive coach when it comes to new ideas and all of that, I think he would be open to actually changing spring football. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me that when it comes to spring practice, you don't actually play another team. And it's important to point out that in college football, it's the only sport that we have out there that doesn't actually scrimmage someone before the actual real games start. In the NFL, you do a lot of inter-squad scrimmages and you have 2 preseason games. And then in high school, you do a whole heck of a lot of that from 7-on-7 all the way up until your actual high school games where you have jamborees and all of that. So the fact that football, in particular college football, has the most valuable regular season, and the fact that you as a fan immediately are given games where the players aren't even accustomed to playing against someone else that's not their own team, I do think Lane would be open to that. So not only what are we going to expect out of the LSU spring game at the end of all of this, what in the world are we going to get in terms of spring footage that we're able to see, in terms of what are the practices actually going to be like, because they will be different than what Brian Kelly had at LSU. For the most part, just based on what I've learned from speaking to different players that played on last year's team, they didn't necessarily mind the way practice was formatted, but at times they didn't feel it was optimized, if you will. So hopefully Lane helps out in that department. We go to the second biggest spring practice storyline, and that is right tackle. So I want to look at you in the face when we talk about this one. I simply wanted to be clear that I am open to another year of Weston Davis at right tackle if we get an improved Weston Davis at right tackle. It bears repeating that it was the lowest graded PFF season in the history of LSU football. In fact, Brad Davis over the last 2 years had 3 different offensive linemen be well below any other offensive lineman we've had at LSU when it comes to their PFF grades. So it's very important to figure out what are you going to do at right tackle, because it's not the only question mark. We know what the left tackle situation is going to look like with Jordan Seaton. We know what the center situation is going to look like next year with Braylon Moore. The other guard positions will work itself out. But can you figure out what you're going to do at right tackle? Weston Davis is one of the few offensive linemen that are back from last year's team. So, for me, I do like Jacoby Jones, that the one of the transfers that they did bring in. And it is also important to point out that there was a baseball draft done by one of the other LSU YouTubers, and Jacoby Jones. His name was brought up there. He was one of my favorites. I loved me some Jacoby Jones. But there are so many different offensive linemen that have been brought in to LSU. William Satterwhite is someone that I'm interested in. He's more so going to be a backup. He's not really played a whole heck of a lot, but he's an interior offensive lineman. What about Darren Stray, a transfer from Kentucky who comes over with Eric Walford? Is he someone that could take a massive step forward? Devin Harper is someone that everybody loves, coming over from not only Ole Miss, but he played at Shreveport. So he played at Shreve High School there. So I really am excited to see how this entire offensive line shakes out, but in particular, what is going to happen at right tackle. We go to point number 3. What is LSU going to do at the nickel star position? This is one of the biggest questions as we move forward with LSU football on the defensive side. Will LSU actually play a defensive back at that position? So last year it was a big talking point. What do we make of Harold Perkins playing this position? It was a pain point for me, at least, when it comes to the LSU defense, because there were a lot of bust, a lot of big explosive plays given up. It looked as if the player at that position, which for a good chunk of the year was Harold Perkins, it looks as if there was a lot of blown assignments there. So will LSU actually play a defensive back there? I will say Ty Benefield is a name that I keep hearing that will be a major impact on LSU's defense. It's not really that big of a shock. He was one of the bigger safety names in the transfer portal. And on top of that, he was a guy that is pretty scheme versatile. He plays really hard. Now, there's some downsides to his game. Yeah, tackling was a little inconsistent for me. But, man, he's got range. He's got speed. He's a guy that reminds me, honestly, a lot of Tamarcus Cooley, who is also going to be a big part of what we're doing next year defensively. Also, shout out to Tamarcus's brother, Trey Cooley. I do this project called Recruit Wheel on social media, and Trey Cooley is a running back, and I spun his name on this wheel that I made on this Recruit Wheel. It is a 1 in 10,000 shot that I would spin Trey Cooley's name, and I spun it. And I didn't know. I really do mean this. And I'm looking at you. I didn't know Tamarcus Cooley had a brother. I didn't know he was a fine Division I running back. So there you go. Now, before we get to the next points, I will answer all these questions. We say hi to Becoming Tyrant. Good to see you. And DB on YouTube, did we talk about the lane feature on the new Boosie single? No, we have not. And we keep it moving here. Number 4, defensive tackle. All right, so there's two different angles that I want to cover here. So the LSU coaching staff is new. A lot of you know that already. But for the most part, they are familiar with one another. You take a look at the Ole Miss staff coming over to LSU. A lot of those coaches were on Ole Miss's staff, so they understand each other's language, they understand each other's verbiage, they have a good idea of what they want the practice to look like and what they want the offense to look like. Obviously, Wolford is new to this operation, but other than that, a good chunk of the offensive coaches know one another. All right. But if you go to the defensive side of the football, you could practically say the same thing about the LSU defense, right? There are so many different players coming back at this defensive tackle position from last year's team, but there is a new coach, and it's pretty much the only new coach to the LSU defensive side of the football. All right. So, what are we going to get out of Coach Lucas? All right. Comes over from South Carolina. He is given the title of the defensive line coach, and Kevin Peoples, interior defensive line, is what his title is. All right. So, how does that actually going to work? So, Kevin Peoples was the edge coach, and one fascinating development is per his new title. Now, I've heard different things regarding this. He is the interior defensive line coach now. So he is moving around. The way I understand it is that it is going to be collaborative, right? So Sterling Lucas, he gets the title of defensive line coach, and Kevin Peoples, interior defensive line coach. I do think they're all going to work together. All right. I really do think that. But Sterling Lucas, of course, again, arguably the best edge room in the country over the past couple of years. It's just the simple truth. One of his defensive ends won the defensive line Heisman a few years ago. Kennard. The same award that Glenn Dorsey won. That was one of the first things Sterling Lucas tweeted out when he took the LSU job, was a photo of Glenn Dorsey's trophy. So you then get to what he did last year with Dylan Stewart, and he's been arguably the best edge coach, and South Carolina's defensive lines have punched well above their weight during the Sterling Lucas era. So I say that because that's the first thing about the defensive tackle room that I find to be fascinating. Now, there's another aspect of it, all right? What is this room actually going to look like? The one position I feel we have not discussed enough is defensive tackle. All right. So we start with the transfers. Blockton coming over from Auburn. Big time weapon, number 47. Dude's got stone hands, right? If you played defensive line before, they say some players are what's called heavy-handed. And what that means is when they get their hands on you, your head rock'em sock'em robots. Boom. You get one of those. Boom. If you're not watching and you're listening on iTunes or Spotify, I'm just doing a head motion. I probably shouldn't do that. That could get meme to oblivion. But that can happen when Blockton gets his hands on. He has got some game. All right. But the guy that I really like a lot is Stefylin Green. All right. Oh, man. Stefylin Green, a loaded defensive line at Clemson. All right. So he was on a line with Peter Woods and TJ Parker. They were both projected to be first-round picks before the season began. And now they are there's a chance that neither go in the first round. Looked at Stefylin Green's PFF grades. They were actually identical to that of Mr. Peter Woods. And one other thing is Green had his best game last year versus LSU with 6 tackles. But I like Stefylin Green a lot. And then you get to the returnees. One deeper cut returnee. I'm going to keep my flag plant down for Byram, or I say Byram Brown, Brandon Brown. All right, so Byram Brown, I'm doing a video on Auburn on the SEC channel. I've done a lot of Byram Brown content. He's one of the quarterbacks that we're going to face next year, and he is a dual threat, big-time playmaker. But Brandon Brown decided to stay at LSU. To my understanding, he's still there. He was a deeper cut guy that I liked a lot. His high school tape is a whole heck of a lot of fun. Kind of undersized, but I still like him. But obviously the big name is Dominic McKinley. Dominic McKinley returns. This is year 3 for him. This is his prime season, and we'll see what happens. His brother went to Ohio State. Many thought Dom was going to follow in his footsteps. That is not what happened. Okay, so really excited about that. And I'm excited about Sterling Lucas and what he's going to do with this LSU defensive line. All right, and then, of course, the biggest story going into spring is the quarterback position. All right, so, I start, obviously, with what happened over the weekend. We saw Sam Leavitt hanging out with Whit Weeks, Zach Weeks, and an artist by the name of Lil Boosie. And boy, oh boy, that was pretty fun to see. So Lane Kiffin has already confirmed that he will be involved with spring, Sam Leavitt, in terms of actually throwing. But what he also said was it probably won't be team type of sessions, which basically means scrimmages and all of that. Who knows at this point? Everyone brought up some red flags here with Sam Leavitt's medicals. What is he actually going to look like going into next year, healthy or non-healthy? It is shocking the amount of people that I've seen do Jordan Tyson breakdowns, and they will then say afterwards, man, I don't think Sam Leavitt was all that good. And that's not how I see it. And I would tell you that to your face. Anyone that knows my track record, I'm not afraid to be critical of anyone. I think Sam Leavitt's going to be plenty good for Lane Kiffin if he is indeed healthy. But that's not the most fascinating quarterback, because we know if Sam Leavitt is healthy, what LSU, put up to get him. Lane Kiffin's not going to take a flight to Knoxville, especially Knoxville, if it doesn't involve getting a quarterback that he really wants. So Sam Leavitt is going to be the starter. But where it gets interesting is this backup quarterback battle. All right, so look, I will say it until I'm blue in the face. I like Landon Clark a lot. I do. And I understand, and I always put this out here. When you do this, you get to know some people. And I've talked to Landon some via Twitter DMs. I have also talked to his trainer, Balin Trujillo. And Balin and I are friends now. He gave us a pretty epic interview. And Landon Clark is a playmaker. Now, the biggest knock on Clark, there's actually 2. He's not the biggest guy. He just simply is not. He is, I wouldn't quite call him tiny. That would be like Kyler Murray, but he's not a big guy. And then the completion percentage numbers at Elon last year were not good. They simply just were not good. And that worries me. They had a pretty big-time receiver who wore number 13 and looked like Mike Evans. And honestly, if you were to sit and watch some of the Elon games, it did feel Manziel-ish, if you will, but not in a great way. It was a lot of, hey, I'm going to run around for a long time, and I'm going to throw a jump ball, and hopefully 13 comes down with it. There was a decent amount of that. Now, there's pros and cons to that. as a quarterback, do you have the arm strength to actually get the football out there where it's catchable? And then number two, a pro of that is we do want to take shots vertically. A big part of what LSU struggled with last year was the vertical passing game. But, you know, when you have some games last year, and Landon had a few per the Elon stats below 50% completion percentage, you do begin to worry. And in our film breakdowns of Landon Clark, though, it was mostly positive. And this was before any of his people even reached out to me. All right. So, I see I see people say that you're not giving me confidence in Clark. Well, that's part of doing this, right? I didn't build this just sunshine pumping every LSU Tiger. But man, dude, Landon's got juice, man. The first thing that is very interesting about him is athleticism wise, you can be a smaller guy and still have a lot of juice. And Landon does, man. He's got real arm strength. All right. So, it comes down to two different types of arm strength. There's how far can you throw the football? And Landon is really good at that aspect. I mean, he can really chunk the football down the field. And then there's actual arm talent, which is how quick do you get the football out? Can you fit the football in the tight windows? And that gets more into like velocity, touch. In English soccer, they call it how well are your passes weighted, right? Is your ball catchable? That's a different aspect of quarterbacking, right? So obviously the most extreme example of this is Anthony Richardson. A lot of you remember the Florida quarterback. Big, huge, gigantic arm. But did he have arm talent? All right. So to me, Landon Clark, if you were to ask me today, he would be my QB2 over Longstreet just because he's got more snaps. And he is a year of collegiate football ahead of Hassan Longstreet, who was a true freshman last year. Landon Clark was a redshirt freshman, and he played a full year as a starter. All right. Even though that was Elon competition, that does count for something. Now, what about Hassan Longstreet? Of these quarterbacks, I think he's probably the best at zone read. For me, when I watch Sam Levitt, truly ridiculously good at playmaking, running, scrambling, all that good stuff. Not as much of a designed runner. Landon Clark obviously can zone read as well. He's really good at that. But Hassan Longstreet is very, very, very good at it. All three of them could do it. Longstreet also has good arm strength. But Longstreet also is a bit on the smaller side. All right, so he comes over from USC, only had extended reps in an absolutely positively blowout type of game versus Missouri State. Jada Maeva was a ridiculously good starter for USC. It kind of fell under the radar that Maeva was a 90-plus QBR quarterback, which is ridiculously tough. He was the first 90-plus QBR quarterback since Jaden and Bo Nix in 2023. So he was good. And so he learned under Lincoln Riley. He learned under Maeva. There was also Sam Heward in that room, a former five-star recruit who was a total bust, but his dad was Brock Heward. So he's been around some sharp people, and now he comes over to this room, and man, he can fly. He's got some real speed. He's got some creative playmaking juice as well. And at this point, I know this isn't the consensus because Longstreet has raised some eyebrows in this workout, kind of sessions before actual spring football starts. But man, I just like me some Landon Clark, man. I really, really, really do. So we'll see how this plays out. And to me, that's the best storyline of all of this. It is. I really do mean it. And I understand, LSU baseball is getting ready to do first pitch, but I am just in a football mode right now. And I'm also still really pissed off about the Jake Brown thing in that game one versus Vanderbilt. But man, dude, I have not been more excited about a quarterback room than this one in terms of intrigue. So the LSU quarterback room has mostly been a clear quarterback room, right? The hierarchy was mostly pretty clear over the past couple of years, right? We knew Garrett Nussmeier was a guy last year, and we knew who the top backup was. That was just straightforward. And then a few years ago, there was, Ricky Collins versus AJ Swan, who came over, but we knew that was Garrett's show. And then the year before that, it was Jaden versus Garrett. We knew who the starter was. We knew who the backup was. We knew how lucky we had it at that juncture. All right. And then it was a year before where we really had, probably the most epic backup quarterback battle one can remember, when it was obviously Garrett versus Walker Howard versus Miles Brennan. And Garrett won that, surprisingly. He was the underdog. So understand, when it comes to this backup quarterback battle, it could be anyone, right? And, I'm really excited to see what Landon Clark's going to do. But something else that is important is, no matter what happens, no matter how much footage we get from the media, I would tell you that be prepared for every last thing to be scrutinized. All right. So I share this because Byron Brown had that Freudian slip a minute ago. I'm putting together a film review tomorrow. He is getting destroyed right now on social media. And he is the quarterback at Auburn, and he is getting destroyed because his throwing motion doesn't look like Drew Brees or Aaron Rodgers. All right. And I'm okay with that from an Auburn perspective. I am. If you're a playmaking quarterback, who gives a what? As long as you don't fumble the football. All right. But it's not the cleanest throwing motion. It's very elongated. And Tristan Keys is an LSU recruit who ended up going to Tennessee, and he's getting destroyed for some of the routes that he ran during practice. So there you go. Now, one thing that's interesting, and there's a lot of Tristan Keys slander happening on the interwebs today. One thing I found to be fascinating is when I first watched him, when he committed to LSU, I said it in the stream, always good to bring in a 5-star wide receiver. I didn't feel, though, like his recruiting ranking to start was the same of a Cam Coleman. And I was like, there's no way. Like, when I watched him, I was like, there's no way. And he did fade a little bit in the rankings, and he's at Tennessee. But, man, I hate that he runs one route versus air. They gave him a jersey number in the 80s, and it looked a little awkward. And he's getting destroyed on social media. This shows you how much people miss football. That we have people doing full breakdowns, slandering a true freshman wide receiver running against air. Okay? It's crazy. Now, once again, I do spring practice breakdowns on all the teams. But I always say during them, it's like, don't get too carried away with anything that you do see. All right? Let's go to Becoming Tyrant's question from the very beginning. You really can't improve much from what I've seen with Weston Davis, honestly. Yeah, it would be like, it would be one of the more drastic changes and step ups I can remember. But, when I tell you that it is signal that one offensive line coach had 3 different offensive linemen have some of the worst PFF grades in LSU history, offense or defense, and just in general, look at any SEC team. You do have to question if it is the coaching. All right. So and I'm not just saying that Walford's the next Dante Scarnecchia, but if you were to just helicopter in and just look at that very thing, you'd have to ask the question, hey, was it really Weston Davis or was it someone else? I mean, you saw what the market was for Mabenga and Chester. They landed at other good P4 schools. So they still believe in him. And obviously, offensive lineman is a very scarce position in the portal. There's always reaches in the portal at that position, but we'll see. We'll see if it's a Brad Davis and just offensive environment thing. And that's kind of the interesting thing about Weston Davis. Is it going to be that, or is he just not that great? Because he did do some bizarre things last year. Bizarre, right? Let's go to Pegasus. Don't forget, we have a free NCAA bracket challenge. The link is down below. Password is Lane Kiffin 7. Let's go to Pegasus. You get in trouble when you try to make an outlier the norm. What makes Trinidad special is not many people can do what he did going from the FCS to the SEC. Yeah, I'm with you on that, Pegasus, but maybe, just maybe, that there are more FCS quarterbacks that can make that leap because they do have the added benefit of playing early. So Trinidad was actually someone that didn't play a whole heck of a lot, just like right off the jump, because Fair State was such a big program. But man, especially at quarterback, snaps do matter so much in actual live game environments. And they really, really, really do. Because so much of what you do as a quarterback has nothing to do with like actual games, right? Like if I'm a hooper, I can really work on my ISO stuff, just bringing a semi-decent defender to the gym. I can work on my bag, right? And that really translate. Now, I'm not saying all these drills that, the quarterback gurus do don't translate, but, you can't replicate an actual pass rush. And you don't actually get hit in practice. So, it's going to be interesting to see if more teams take the FCS shots on kids. But I do think you are right, though. Mostly the outliers will remain outliers. I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of FCS quarterbacks that play at a Heisman level. Okay? This is why Lane won't let media into practice. Landon kept plays alive for a bunch of lazy wide receivers. Oh, you saw some lazy route running in our tape? Okay. Yeah, we got to get to this from our friends at Labor Therapy. And then we'll get into what did Lane Kiffin tweet today. I see something pretty interesting I want to get into. Also regarding a pretty big topic near and dear to me. Power Hour Network listeners and viewers, you might be consuming this content with that crick in your back that you've been trying to get rid of for so long. Take this as your sign today to book your appointment with LaboardTherapy.com. In the Lafayette region, there is no one that you will find that cares more about any different type of pain that you might have than the team at LaboardTherapy.com. Book today.
Once again, that's LABORDE therapy.com, or you can visit one of their 5 locations all throughout the Lafayette region.
All right, you're looking at an LSU practice footage. I say practice footage, just a workout session here. Deshaun Spears is also somebody I would be interested in seeing at star nickel. I watched a video on this today. So you see how that back is arched on bench press? It looks like that's Gabriel Relaford. By the way, we just did a deep dive on Gabriel for our members. So I was told that you're not supposed to arch your back on bench press. I watched a YouTube video today. You are supposed to do that. So it's always cool to get the inside look on what actual trainers tell their clients to do. And this looks like your linebacker duo, TJ Daugherty and Whit Weeks right here. Look at that. Oh, Whit shoulder pressing 85s? Is that what that is? Yeah, those are 85s. It's big time right there. Can you shoulder press 85s, whoever you are watching or listening to this right now? All right, we'll take a few more here. Okay. I screwed this up. All right, what else did Lane Kiffin tweet today? Add the replies here. Very soon you will smile and say, God, this is more than I prayed for. Amen to that. A Josh Pay quote. Don't mistake your passion for something you'll have to do on the side. Someone out there will pay to do what you love. Don't forget. LSU, Jacksonville, Friday, March 20th at 4 p.m. Central. Okay. Going to be a wild one. We will have post-game coverage of that game on Friday. Tuesday night baseball in the box, obviously. We'll move on to that here pretty soon. Lil Wayne going back on tour with 2 Chainz and The Game. Wayne and Cookie. CL Shepard. And there you go. That is what Lane tweeted today. Now, I did want to talk at the end here about Ahmad Hudson. So, yes, he is crystal balled. That'll be something we'll cover a little bit more in tomorrow's live stream. I just simply can't say enough good things about the recruiting. And, Dobson is fascinating to me, the 5-star corner. When I watched him, he is a top 10 national 5-star. All right. So that's a pretty high bar to clear. Athletically, he's there. I really do mean it. Athletically, he's there. But, his recruiting ranking is right there with like Derek Stingley, Patrick Peterson. It's impossible to project somebody to be that good. But, at this point, I cannot wait what the senior film is actually going to show. He transfers from a school in South Carolina to a school in North Carolina. And he's going to be on a defense with a bunch of other elite 4-stars. That wasn't the case at a school last year. So it's going to be a fascinating senior season for Dobson. Ahmad Hudson, though, is someone who dominates pretty much every camp he goes to. Okay. We say hi to Tyler. What's good, man? Kiff needs to pay Flynn for 2 months to work with Longstreet on nothing but footwork. Oh, Man City got kicked out today? I didn't watch Champions League. I was deep in the PHL film room. I say PHL was Power Hour SEC stuff. But yeah. Anytime City loses, even though I'm a Guardiola fan, I'm good with it. Now, I kind of want to wait before I share more details on Ahmad Hudson, and by details, I'm not saying I'm Shea Dixon or anything like that, but just my personal thoughts on him. I like the fact that LSU has been on this insane run of these ridiculously talented receiving tight ends. All right, so you got Kamarion Pimpton a while back. You get Trey Green. You're about to get Ahmad Hudson. It's a lot of fun. Those players are just a lot of fun. It just comes down to how exactly do they fit, right? Are there actually tight ends? Put your hand in the dirt, block defensive ends, climb to the second level. Are they big slot receivers or X receivers in the red zone? It's a fascinating question. But now I do want to talk about something that has a bigger effect on LSU than you would probably think. All right, so one interesting thing, and I guarantee you there's not another LSU, or there might be. I don't listen and watch the other channels as much as I probably should. And you guys don't have a lot of respect for all the other LSU YouTubers. Okay. What I would say though is there are pros and cons to the jersey number debate. Now, growing up, that was my favorite thing. I think about jersey numbers all the time. And I think a lot of us have our own little sport quirk that you think about more than other people, right? One of you watching this right now might think about ballpark food more than others, or you think about ratings more than others. But my little quirk has always been jersey numbers. I remember all of my high school teammate jersey numbers, and I don't have good memory. I don't know if it was CTE from when I was playing in high school. I don't know. But players want single-digit numbers. It's just how it works, all right? And that's why we have so many double numbers in football. And when a single digit opens up, players are going to leave their jersey number to have a single digit. And they want the lowest digit possible, all right? It's just how it works. Now, it's not universal. That's not consensus. That's not any of that, right? But Matt Leinart was on his podcast that he does with one of the characters from Entourage. Weird pairing, but that's LA for you. And he said that he will not unretire his jersey number of 11. All right, so USC retired Matt Leinart's jersey number, rightfully so. He won a Natty, he won a Heisman. And he said in this podcast interview, or on his podcast, he wouldn't be an interview, that they have asked him, Matt, we need that number 11 jersey number. Matt's like, nah, not happening. This just happened with Cam Newton. All right, so Cam Newton was, arguably the best player in Auburn history, and he wore number 2, and rightfully so. No one's ever going to wear that number 2 again. And Deuce Knight was a 5-star dual threat quarterback, and he wore number 2 in high school, and he wanted to wear it at Auburn. in year one. And Cam said, no, not happening. And Cam was right because Deuce Knight is no longer at Auburn. And Liner basically said the same thing. In the NIL transfer portal era, why would I do that? Now, it would be different if this was Jaden Maeva, the starter for USC. It would be different that a quarterback coming off a 90-plus QBR season, which is really hard. That was the first one since Jaden and Bo Nix. It's really hard to do that. It would be different, but I don't know the full details of that. So why is that relevant to LSU? Well, 3 of our single-digit numbers are tied up. They are tied up. All right, so number 7, you can't just give number 7 out. All right, it's a tradition, as many of you know. But 2 jersey numbers you see every time you log in here to PHL is number 9 right here and then number 5. Heisman Trophy winners. I don't know your opinion on if jersey numbers should be retired or not, okay? But it does put us at this weird disadvantage because players want those numbers. All right, so a good example of this that's currently happening right now with the LSU team is Hassan Longstreet is currently practicing in number 6. Winnie Watkins is also practicing in number 6. Okay? So why is that relevant? Well, they both can't wear number 6 next year. And it is a recruiting tactic when it comes to jersey numbers. And some players do take it very seriously. If it came down to equal money and I could wear number 1 at one school and number 14 at the other, some players could take into account that I'm wearing Uno, which is arguably the most coveted number across different teams. So what I want you to do as we leave here to all watch, hopefully LSU baseball, it's already underway. I hope they're destroying them. Do you think jersey numbers should be retired? We'll do a whole live stream on this tomorrow. My thoughts on this is, I come from a soccer background, and they do not retire jersey numbers. All right, it would make a lot of sense if no one for the Brazil national team ever wore number 10 again. All right, and obviously number 10 was Pele, the greatest soccer player of all time. But what Brazil does, and what every team does in soccer now, is your team's best offensive player wears number 10. All right, so since Pele wore number 10, Ronaldinho wore number 10, and then Neymar wore number 10. And they're obviously legends. I say obviously, not a whole lot of you know a whole lot about, football, if you will. So that's one way of doing it. Some teams do not retire numbers. If there was ever a number to be retired, it would probably be Tim Tebow's number 15. Multiple quarterbacks have worn it since then. Anthony Richardson, Graham Mertz wore number 15. Darren McFadden's number 5, even though he didn't win the Heisman, he was a runner-up 2 times in a row, and Arkansas doesn't have near the legendary amount of players as, their SEC counterparts. Well, since then, there have been a lot of solid players that have worn number 5. So maybe it could be a different type of tradition, but I think a lot of you don't want to see number 9 in particular ever worn again. And I think a lot of you feel the same way about number 5. So let me know down below. But it's tough, man. It is so tough to do the jersey number thing. It is a slippery slope. Because, I don't know. To me, jersey numbers matter more to me. All right. One thing I would say is, I think you're a little bit more memorable as an athlete if you have a unique jersey number. I really do mean that. I think if there was an obscure jersey number that's worn more, it's number 77 because Luka Doncic wears number 77. I see number 77 pop up more than any other obscure jersey number in basketball, right? Like, was number 23 ever coveted in sports before Michael Jordan? Probably not. So I'm of the belief that you should make your own jersey number, your own tradition, right? Like Tommy Casanova, number 37. When you think of number 37 at LSU, you think of one person. It's not Carnell Hatcher. You think of Tommy Casanova. And if you know who Carnell Hatcher is, you are a true LSU fan. So, it's strange. Like, I've always found the single digit number thing to be so bizarre. So bizarre. Like this jersey number that people know you for. All right. Like, so a good example of this was South Carolina. They had a good freshman wide receiver who wore number 16. And I think it was Ventrell Jacobs. There is a tight end who had a double-digit number, switched to number 4. Then he quit on the team for redshirt reasons. And right when number 4 opened up, the guy wore number 16 immediately switched to number 4. Well, I would have told that kid, don't do that. All right? Don't do that. Did he wear number 16? Sellers wears 16. It was either number 17. I think it was 17 now. But you get the point. Like, South Carolina fans know you as number 17. So stick with that. But he switched to number 4. It's always been crazy. Yeah, and it's funny because I listened to Michael Irvin do an interview about this recently. And Michael Irvin said, look, my opinion on this is the opposite. Because if you see number 88, as is the case now with CeeDee Lamb, who is a top 10 wide receiver in the NFL, that's because he grew up on Mama's Fried Chicken and Billy's. CeeDee Lamb is wears number 88. It's rare for any wide receiver that's good to have a jersey number in the 80s, but it makes him unique in that he is carrying on the 88 tradition, which was started by Michael Irvin, and it was continued by Des Bryant, and now CeeDee Lamb is the third player for the Cowboys to wear it since Irvin. Now, Michael Irvin said, hey, I actually like that because when CeeDee Lamb makes a play on TV, the broadcasters will bring up, hey, that's Michael Irvin's number 88. And then kids would ask their parents, hey, who was Michael Irvin? And, dad or grandpa would say, oh, if you think CeeDee Lamb was good, Michael Irvin was a triplet. Michael Irvin was that dude. Michael Irvin is now a podcaster and a trash can whipper, but people remember that. They do. They really, really, really do. So there's that. There's that aspect of it. And it kind of goes on what we were saying a minute ago about the number 10 in soccer. If you wear number 10 in soccer, I think it's kind of cool that the Brazil number 10 is always worn by an all-time great. The Argentina number 10. Maradona, Messi. Crazy. So, yeah, I've grown on not retiring jersey numbers. One that really pissed me off, since we're on this topic, is I like it when wide receivers wear jersey numbers in the 80s. I do, because it's nostalgic. But the wildest thing to me is Romeo Doubs, who is one of the rare good wide receivers in the NFL that wears number 87. He gets signed by the New England Patriots, and they allow him to wear number 87, which is stupid. Rob Gronkowski is the best tight end in the history of football, and he wears number 87. If the best guy ever at his position plays for your team and is known for playing for your team, and you don't retire his jersey number, you shouldn't do that. Like, it is insane to me. They've had other players wear number 87 since Rob Gronkowski. That is stupid. That is stupid. So the weird thing about the Burrow aspect of it compared to Matt Leinart is Joe Burrow is the best college quarterback ever. You cannot say that about Matt Leinart. All right, so it is a little bit different, but I find it interesting that we do have a few players on the same side of the football at LSU that are practicing in the same number. And trust me, there are equipment managers that think about this. It's tough because right when one of those lower digits open, people want it. Okay. All right, we'll take a few more. And yeah, let's talk about Ahmad Hudson tomorrow. I normally like to watch a player for a decent amount before I give like my full thoughts on it. PSG beat Chelsea today 8-2. um, this happens every March, where I get a lot of March Madness questions. Hey, who should I pick to win my bracket? And it's more so from like friends and all of that. Like, I get a lot of college football betting questions during the season, but I will give my bracket tips. All right. So obviously more men's brackets are filled out than the women's. If you do not pick chalk in the women's bracket, you are truly insane. No, you're truly insane. You should never have a Final Four team that is no less than a 3 seed in the women's game. 4, you're pushing it. All right. Especially now that there is portal. Now, we get to the men's bracket. This is the 3rd consecutive season where the one lines are like historically strong. You know, I think I'm gonna have all 4 1 seeds making it yet again. I do. You know, there's a lot of sharp action on Illinois making a run here. I can't trust Brad Underwood in the tournament. I've done it before, and I'm not going to do it again. I know you shouldn't go in with that logic, but that's just where I am. But I do think the discussion for I do, and I really, really do mean this. I do think the discussion for like, should we reward more points in most bracket pools for upsets? Should we do that? Yeah, I think we should. I really, really, really do think so. So there you go. But that's it for me. Once again, big thanks to our friends at Labor Therapy. LSU baseball. Let's see what the count is right now. do not have a score. I'll pull it up here if y'all want to hear me do some baseball play-by-play. I'm going to be dual boxing it here. Puff passing it here between the World Baseball Classic final. Oh, man. If LSU loses to Grambling tonight. Oh. So it's 0-0 in the top of the second. Goodness gracious. I'm telling you, if Grambling beats us tonight, I don't know if I'm watching another baseball game again. Oh, he went. Did anyone see that in the background? All right, let's see what happens here on the 3-2. Fouled off. All right. I will have a hot take here, if you don't mind me sharing a hot one. The LSU pinstripes is their second best uniform. Y'all, oh my God, dude, he just roped that single up the middle. So Grambling runners on first and second. I don't want to get pissed. I do not want to get pissed. And I said to myself this year, I've said it publicly on these live streams. Carter, don't be an asshole, dude. Like, just be happy with the natties that you have. But Jay Johnson's not playing any games. He already get to the fin. Jay is not playing any games. Ugh. I can't do this. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and sign it off. It is Power Hour LSU. Boom. Tonight. Shout out to the Graham fam. I have a lot of friends that went there. We are doing. Oh, we're doing like some Greek kebabs. Now, here's the thing about these Greek kebabs. I'll eat it raw. Now I'll go in raw with these little kebabs from Trader Joe's. I don't need the white sauce. I just need the kebab. Don't need the pita bread, just the protein, baby. I'll put a little hot sizzle on there, but no, I am don't need. I normally like it with the pita bread and all that stuff, but raw meat is fine. Nah, all protein, baby. That's what we're doing tonight. Let's go.